Good evening, everyone. We'll start our Committee of the Whole meeting at 6 o'clock here in Council Chambers. We do not have any remote electronic attendance, so we'll move to the board appointment of the mayor's appointment of Kirk Marsky to the Keep Moline Beautiful Commission to fill the unexpired term of Jeff Manis to expire November 30th, 2024. He is here. He is our new Moline Center manager, and we're excited for his partnership with Renew Moline. So. Thank you so much. Next is a presentation, Citizen Life Saving Awards from our January 25th, 2023 fire. Chief Regenweather.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Council. We've got quite the group joining me up here.
Wow.
All right. At approximately 10:12 a.m. on the morning of January 25th, the Moline Fire Department was notified of a possible structure fire at the Timber Knoll apartment complex. When the possibility of structure fire is reported, at this time of morning, we can often expect that maybe someone left for work and left a burner on their stove, maybe caused some grease on fire, something of that nature. And often, more times than not, these types of incidents can resolve very quickly and with very few issues. There might be a lot of smoke in the hallways and the smell of burnt bacon or burnt food for quite some time, but typically it's nothing major. On this particular morning, however, the initial dispatch for fire units included phrases such as multiple callers and lots of black smoke coming across John Deere Road. And for firefighters, that's typically a cue that this is going to be more than just some food on the stove. To add to the stress level, there were immediate reports of trapped victims on the second floor relayed over our radios. And to make matters even worse, the engine company assigned to that particular part of town was on another call for a motor vehicle accident, which meant the response time to this particular fire was going to be slightly longer than normal. As fate would have it, however, the individuals that are being recognized here tonight were all close by and willing to put their own safety at risk by assisting those in need. They quickly provided ladders to the second floor balconies and assisted individuals, one after another, down and away from danger. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a hero as a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, and one who shows great courage. These 8 individuals certainly met that definition the morning of January 25th. 8 individuals, some trimming trees, a couple completing maintenance tasks, and a couple others simply out running some errands, instantly became heroes that day. Without hesitation, they recognized the dire situation that many potential victims found themselves in. Victims trapped on the second floor of their apartment building with both of their exits blocked by fire. The only way to safety was a route given to them by these courageous individuals. They're heroes for sure, there's no question about that. And without their presence and the quick actions they took, it is without a doubt lives could have been lost that morning. So for the actions taken on January 25th, and on behalf of the City of Moline, Mayor Putty, and myself, I would like to present a City of Moline Life Saving Award to the following individuals. From Asplin Tree Service, Austin Church, Kevin Wardrop II, Gary Jens, and Miles Peck. From Rec QC, maintenance workers David Qualls and Jordan Blake, and off-duty firefighters from East Moline, Lieutenant Mike Reddick, and our very own Moline firefighter, Engineer Mike Herrick.
Thank you.
Certificate for each of them here. It's going to take me just a minute to hand out. Austin. Kevin. Thank you. Gary. Miles. David Walsh. Jordan Blake. Thank you. Mike Reddy, Lieutenant. Thank you, guys. Mayor, would you like a picture?
Sure.
Move this out of the way and.
Sure. If that's what is traditional.
cozy back there, isn't it?
It's a maze.
They're not gonna see it. Not with this group.
Thank you all. As I've mentioned in public or on social media, your actions are representative of the kind of people we love to have in our community and are product of a wonderful community. So thank you all.
One more, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Start clapping.
Thank you. Okay, next presentation is from our CED Department, Community Economic Development and River Action, Rock River Ravines Executive Summary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This evening I have Kathy Wine from River Action, and she is going to present the Rock River Ravines Watershed Plan update, going over several of the projects that have been done in the Rock River Ravines watershed to help alleviate stormwater issues within that area. So, Kathy.
Honor and council members, it's good to be here. We've worked with Moline a lot. Last year, we worked with Eric and Greg and Rod on Sylvan Island projects, and we worked a lot with Andy Prayer, and we're so glad to have him when he helps us with our Flood Alliance. We've done Taming of the Slough, Floadzilla, and all those things, the conference last year. And this year, we plan to work more on the Floreciente Trail that we're designing and working with the engineers on. And again, Taming of the Slough and some of those things. A little background before I give the microphone to Liv here. This Rock River Ravines Watershed Plan we did originally in 2008 with a grant from EPA, Illinois EPA. And we did several projects with it, most of them being in Green Valley, but we did one in Black Hawk College, and we did a biodiversity day in Green Valley. Wonderful projects that were a result of this watershed plan, but it occurred to us 12 years ago, after 12 years, I'm sorry, that it needed to be updated. So we got another grant from EPA, we updated it, and that's what we're presenting to you tonight. And it was needed because of the development along John Deere Road and just other things that changed in the watershed, and we knew it needed to be updated. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and I will give the microphone to Liv, my most able and wonderful program manager in natural resources, to talk about the specific parts of the plan that Ryan referred to.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for letting us come in and present. So I'm going to be talking about the updated in July 2022 watershed plan. This will be for just Moline. So I'm just going to be kind of running through introductions to the ravines, best management practices completed since 2008, what we mentioned, a ravine project breakdown, and then just the budget and overall. So just to introduce you guys to the Rock River, the watershed is about 25 square miles, and it ultimately drains water into the Rock River. The watershed consists of 11 ravines spanning from the city of Rock Island to the village of Carbon Cliff, and as you can see on the map, it's very big. The watershed includes over 87 miles of streams and more than 88 acres of wetlands. So as you can tell, this is a really big area that deserves the attention that it needs so we can stop with stormwater erosion. So I'm just going to briefly give you guys a map of the area that I'm going to be talking about. So it'll just be ravines 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for Moline today. So these are some of the BMPs that have been completed since 2008. I wanted to recognize them because these are such great things to have. I mean, all the way from stormwater detention ponds to turf reinforcement mats to control erosion. They've done some really great things. I wanted to recognize that and wanted to be able to continue those really great projects. So these are 7 of them, so that's really exciting to see. And then here are the last 3. A lot of stormwater pump stations have been put in and a lot of really great things. So I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the projects that we have outlined in this plan. So one of them is a channel restoration located in the Wildwood subdivision, and I circled the area where it would be. And the BMPs would just be turf reinforcement mats, which just help with soil erosion, an 8-foot dam at the downstream end, perimeter fencing for safety, and deep-rooted native seeding, and this will just help again with stormwater runoff and native habitat, which is really exciting. And I just kind of put on the bottom of every single one what the BMPs will reduce, and this one is erosion and runoff rates. And this again will not only benefit the channel, but the downstream, so people that live in the downstream areas will also see benefits from this. So this will be project 4.1, and this focuses on channel and storm outfall restoration. And I circled the area. This will be north of 2929 and 2932 8th Street. And this will be replacing a stormwater sewer, again adding turf reinforcement mats and native seeding on the channel banks. So moving on to project 5, this is another channel restoration. It's a lot of repetitiveness, but a lot of channel restoration definitely is needed. Again, high velocity turf reinforcement mats. This will be a bigger dam, about a 12-foot dam at the downstream end, perimeter fencing and deep-rooted native seeding. Again, a lot of these projects are just to help with erosion and runoff rates and pollution, and I'll explain to you guys when we talk about the budget how much reduction that'll actually be. So we have a few more projects. So this is kind of the bigger one, and this is a wetland enhancement, something I'm very excited to talk about. So this will be stormwater detention ponds with pumping stations. Again, TRM, very needed everywhere. Perimeter fencing and native and wetland seeding. I really want to emphasize wetlands so we can continue to increase our native habitat. And this will just benefit the project area as well as downstream and adjacent properties. So not only with the wetland benefit, but the people around it. And the last project I'm going to discuss is the channel restoration located east of 44th Street and south of 26th Avenue in Moline. So again, this will be high velocity turf reinforcement mats and deep-rooted native seeding. So this project will not only benefit the sides of the project, but the downstream channel. Again, another very repetitive but needed statement to say, because it's not just one single area that'll benefit, it's a vast majority of the downstream area. So this is the budget table. This was put together by EnviroNet, and I just kind of want to walk you guys through it. So this is our, obviously we'll have our project and then the jurisdiction, and then current sediment. We have tons a year of sediment going into our Rock River. It not only destroys habitat, it disrupts the ecosystem, and we see a lot more flooding and stormwater runoff. So we are slowly working on load reduction. They're not massive, but it's a step, and a good step that we need. And then I just have the estimated cost. And these are some big dollars, but to keep in mind that some of these services can be done with in-kind services and cash. So it'll kind of break it down, make it a little bit cheaper, especially when we come to applying for grants for these projects. So yeah, that is some of the projects that I wanted to discuss. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I brought a ton of my business cards, so you guys can have that. So I'll pass those out. And if you have any questions, let me know now. If you can't think of any now, that's totally fine. Always email me, and I'll probably just...
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys for letting me come in and present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
No, thank you. So yeah, always email us. We'd love to get some of these things started. But if no questions, then thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the council? No? Thank you. Okay, our next item is public comment. Do we have public comment, Chief? Okay, who's first? Thank you.
Okay, I didn't get that either. Okay, I just wondered.
I think you have 3 minutes.
Hello? I'm Gail Thompson, and I've been a citizen of Moline for over 40 years.
I retired from the Moline schools after 34 years. Both of my sons went through school here. One owns his home in Moline, and my husband and I have owned 3 separate houses in the city. And I've never done anything like this before, and I was really glad to see those TV cameras leave before I did. Okay, I attended the last city council meeting where the proposed ADU ordinance was discussed thoroughly. And that was quite a lesson in city government for me. I did a bit of thinking after this and have some things that I would like to address. First, I'm not against ADUs because of who will live next to me. I can't control that now. I guess I am concerned with how many, since this will allow multifamily use of a property in an area zoned for single-family dwellings with all of the problems we have expressed to you again and again. Second, I'm not against renters. I was a renter. I rented until I saved enough money to buy a house in one of Moline's beautiful, diverse neighborhoods. This was a conscious choice that I made 3 times. Third, apparently, because I'm against this ordinance, I belong to a certain demographic. If that demographic is people who have worked hard to buy a house in a single-family neighborhood, then guilty. Finally, you've told us that you're listening to us, but I'm not sure you're hearing us. I have no problem with you moving your elderly parents onto your property. I believe you can do that now. As long as you have a building permit and you meet the code, you can remodel your basement or add an addition to your home. Let's be honest, this is not about granny flats. This is about additional rental properties. Last council meeting definitely pointed out that Moline has a problem with inspecting and enforcing current rentals throughout the city. Adding more before fixing this seems to defy logic. Please, solve one problem before you add another. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another.
Hello, Your Honor. Thank you for giving me a moment to speak here today. My name is Kevin Kotecki. This is Bob Marriott, and we work for Group O, which is a local company located near the airport. I'm the CEO, and Bob is the CFO. I'm here today to let you know that I recently became aware of the plan to construct a transfer station across the street from our headquarters in one of our facilities. And the more I've learned about it, the more concerned I've become. And out of respect for you and for this group, I wanted to come here today and let you know that we're opposed to moving forward with that project. And I could run through the reasons why. Some of them are obvious. We're concerned about odors, we're concerned about garbage, we're concerned about depreciation of the value of our property, our ability to recruit and retain employees, we're concerned about safety, roads being torn up, you name it. We also, from a community standpoint, don't know that that facility there is going to promote the right image of the Quad Cities as people come into the airport and see it. So we do so out of respect, just to let you know where we stand, and we'd be happy to talk with anyone about it later. But this is wanted to make sure you knew where we were on this issue.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Someone will follow up.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Vicky Graves.
Hello, my name is Vicki Graves. I'm chair of the Plan Commission and a Moline resident. Some of my comments are similar to Ms. Thompson, so I'll try and be brief. I attended the January 17 City Council meeting at which the proposed ADU ordinance was discussed, amended 5 times, and tabled. I want to explain why the amendments do not fix the problems with the proposed text amendment that caused Plan Commission to vote against it 9-1. The discussion about parking at the January 17 meeting highlights one of the concerns that Plan Commission had. Addition of more dwellings in existing family neighborhoods will exacerbate existing problems. Parking is one of those problems, but another is stormwater drainage. Many neighborhoods already have storm drain systems that are inadequate to handle severe weather. More buildings and more paving for parking will make that worse, and that relates directly to the ravine protection program discussed earlier tonight. Some city council members seem to think that resident opposition to creation of ADUs in single-family neighborhoods was based on race discrimination or wanting to pick your neighbors. I went to both public forums and the Plan Commission public hearing, and that is absolutely not my impression, and I guarantee you race was not a discussion topic for the Plan Commission. There are concerns about parking, about privacy, and yes, concern about rental, but again, as Ms. Thompson said, the City Council has acknowledged that there are rental problems. I do not agree with Alderman Went that rentable ADUs and garages and sheds are a wise addition to Moline R2 zones. I do agree with him, however, that allowing rentable ADUs in these zones should come only after the city has an effective rental registration program and an inspection program that applies to single-family properties. Requiring property owners who create an ADU for a family member with no intention of renting it to register that ADU on the list of rentable properties exposes that property owner to charges of race discrimination, fair housing discrimination, if they're not renting that property out. An out-of-state corporation that owns multiple single-family rental properties is not currently required to register those properties and therefore is able to fly under the radar. That doesn't make sense. This ordinance does not affect my family or property. In 2020, we bought a house that is more expensive than most homes in Moline. Our neighborhood has covenants that prohibit leasing and prohibit residents from constructing ADUs. Those covenants protect our property values. But in my opinion, you shouldn't have to buy a high-priced house to have that protection. In all price ranges, you should be able to rely on thoughtful zoning to protect your property value. The best step for the City Council tonight is to vote down the proposed ADU text amendment. An alternative would be to go back to what Plan Commission proposed in the spring of 2022, which is to allow ADUs only for extended family members of the property owner. This has been a really time-consuming topic for the Plan Commission and for City Council. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your careful consideration.
Thank you very much.
Greg Sellers.
Okay.
Good evening. I didn't have a formal presentation, but I'll just speak off the top of my head. I'm a resident of the city for 59 years. I'm a retired city employee of 30 years. I attended the mayor's presentation and information at the public library on the ADU topic. I went to the planning commission meeting and listened to the entire meeting and all the presentations and information, questions and answers that were there. And also their recommendation to not pass the ordinance as it was written. I've met with some other people, and I also sent out an email to all of the council members here, and I'd like to thank the 3 of you that responded to me. At the presentation at the Planning Commission, the staff member advised the commission that they'd been working on this for 3 years, and at that particular point in time, they felt that they had some more things that they needed to do besides spend a lot of time on this particular topic. This thing had been being worked on for over 3 years or 3 years, and it seemed like a good idea to get this thing over with in less than 3 years, and it seems like this is an inordinate amount of time to try and get this resolved. Another thing I believe is because Davenport, Rock Island, East Moline, Bettendorf, and Davenport, I believe all, have this ordinance, doesn't mean that we need this ordinance. We have pertinent ordinances and regulations that regulate almost everything that's in the ADU presentation of ordinance. If they're refined slightly, we don't need another ordinance. If we could get the staff hired that has been discussed as rental officers, inspection officers, and so on, which was recommended, that we hire, 2, maybe 3, depending on what their function was gonna be. That's what we need now. We don't need an additional ordinance, because the city of Moline has no idea how many rental units there are in this town. We don't. They just aren't, we don't know. So if we enforce the rules that we have on the books, maybe tweak a few, I think that we can handle this situation that we're addressing here. I'm not opposed to the ADU concept, but I believe we could take what the Planning Commission and city staff has given us with additions to residences that stand and forget this supplemental building in the backyard, side yards, converting garages, whatever you want to call it. Eliminate that out of your ordinance, and a lot of these hot button topics are going to go away. You'll survive. Everybody will get what they want, and this will work. But that's what most people seem to be opposed to, is this building that's out in the backyard or the side yard additional parking, off-street parking, all these hot button topics are part of the thing that are related to freestanding garages converted or an additional building. Leave that out of the ordinance, table it, come back another day, and get that part out. And I think a lot of people in this room will concur with that on both sides of the bench here, or the wall, or whatever.
Oh, sorry, did you
We
do
out of
the?
time?
Yeah, out of time, sorry.
Okay, I'm opposed to the ordinance as it's written right now.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Chief Galt? Okay, that ends our public comment. In terms of questions on the agenda, there's one item of change that just the executive session minutes of 12/13/22 are being pulled from the consent agenda in item 13.1. Okay, then we move to our committee of the whole agenda item. 7.1, an ordinance amending Chapter 4 alcoholic liquor of the Moline Code of Ordinances, increasing the number of Class C licenses in the city at the request of HS Stores LLC, doing business as Essentials. I'm taking that over, or are you taking that over? Deputy Liquor Commissioner? I can do it, that's fine.
Okay.
So as the explanation stated, I have denied this request for a license, and the explanation was clear. One thing we didn't have in there was that there already is something touted as an alternative lifestyles store, a block east of this business. And so I encourage you to also deny this license. And I'm encouraging, I've talked with the clerk, encouraging business owners to continue to work with CED or other consultants to come up with more creative ideas for stores in those strip malls. Is there a motion? Yes, there's a question?
Question.
Okay, yes, Mr.
So what, because I noticed in there that one of the comments was there's already a liquor store in this ward and different things. What is the criteria? That's always my concern, is that doing this is kind of as an ad hoc. We run into some issues of, well, I like these people, but I don't like those, or I like this type of business, but I don't like that kind of business. I mean, having a criteria of, are we saying that we just want one in per ward, or just
The
within
criteria
distance?
that we've talked about previously is, are the distance between locations. And in this case, as I mentioned, I've gotten feedback from residents that are concerned that the only types of stores that are opening are places that cater to smoking or alcohol. And with the cannabis on the horizon, there's a lot of people wanting to have associated industries. I think that we need to talk further together about tobacco shop licensure, but I do know that, for example, in Ward 6, I mean, we found a correction. It's now in the, this one actually happens to be is in Ward 5, I believe.
With the boundary change, it's 4
Yeah.
now.
Oh, 4. So, but the point is also it's one block from another place that's it's doing the same thing right now. But Ward 6, I heard very clearly from meetings with Ward 6 that, the tobacco and liquor outlet that went in down there, they don't want to see more of that. And so this is on that side of the city, and I just thought it was time to say no, because we already have that a block over.
It's kind of interesting that they have enough business to do like 2 liquor stores. I mean, those liquor stores are really close to each other, and they both do.
Oh, down on 92.
Yeah, down by my house. You're like, and it's not all me.
What?
But, cigarettes and alcohol. But, yeah.
So there are those considerations, and I do think it deserves further conversation in terms of where do we see this tobacco and liquor outlet things going. But yes, currently this is not on the floor. We need a motion to discuss. These are my preambles.
Well, if we don't
Well,
do
if we
anything,
don't
it just
motion,
dies.
then nothing happens. It fails for a lack of a motion.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question or a statement.
Is this a point
Point of inquiry.
Point
Point
of
of inquiry.
Margaret will allow that.
Yes.
Okay.
I find I'm generally against all licenses, let's be honest. I don't want to increase them at all. But I kind of hate this explanation.
Yeah, that's.
I hate it. It sounds like since we have one Taco Bell, we don't want another one. We're not in the business to regulate business. You know, they decide where they're going to locate. They decide if there's a market. That's my first point. My second point is, did we have our heads in the sand when we allowed a cannabis license? Those of you that know me knew this was coming. Don't be shocked that all these businesses are going to locate near the dispensary. This is just the tip of the iceberg that you're going to have to face the next 2 years. I'm not for the license, but the explanation is horrible. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Went?
To that, I guess you had said that this is something we need to look into further. Would this be the time to be appropriate to direct staff to come back? Because I agree, that's why I asked the question. I said, I don't really understand what our criteria is to come back with some kind of better explanation, criteria of how we address these things moving forward. I agree. I mean, I've been.
The code is pretty wide open about what you say yes or no to, what a liquor commissioner says yes or no to.
Because the neighboring properties there had to be
Consent,
50% of consent, or is it just 50%?
They did obtain that.
That is fine. Just keep in mind that the residents, as they've explained in public comment, would like to be heard about the kind of businesses that are coming into Moline. And so, to simplify the explanation, I don't believe this type of business is necessary. I'm happy to talk further with staff about the tobacco licensure, et cetera. There's also concerns about numbers of vape shops, et cetera. I don't have anything against those shops in my position as liquor commissioner, but I do have to keep my eyes open for what is the dispersal of these shops around town, and how much is it impacting us, especially near the high school. So if there's no motion, it'll fail for lack of a motion, so. Yes, Mr. Wine.
Question for Margaret. With our ordinance being so wide open, someone making an application like this and this being our explanation for denial, is that sufficient, or is that concerning, or is there something we should do to ameliorate any possible liability or issues with this?
Well, your ordinance is very expansive, so you are likely not in violation of your ordinance. So on that point, I believe that, this process would withstand a review. Now, that being said, maybe it is a good idea to have some guidelines.
Yes, when we have talked about that, when we talked about the Class C, I think, and we began that discussion in summer of '21, and I'm happy to go back to CED staff and talk about, and gather something together so that there can be some other criterion that balances the freedom to set up a business and also allows the city to take a close look at, where things are being placed. Yes, Mr. Timian.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Yes.
The vote is not for the shop. It is for increasing the number of licenses. And we have complete discretion to do that. That is exactly why we have a limit. There doesn't have to be guidelines about that. It is completely our purview to do so. And this is why we have this control. So this is what we're voting on. And as a council, we have the right to vote as a body to increase it or not.
Yes, so you have the right to say, to approve the license. That's why that chapter was set up like that. Mr. Schmidt?
I just want to say that really you should make a motion.
Thank you.
Put this on
Thank
the
you.
floor.
My question actually was related to that, as I'm unwilling to make said motion. Could I make a motion to suspend the rules to allow discussion of this topic without a motion? Like, is there a way to move that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I think
Yeah.
you can
Would
do
that be an
that.
appropriate
You
motion?
can do that.
You
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow discussion of the liquor license topic.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Schmidt, seconded by Alderperson Went. All right, discussion. Yes,
We need to
Mr.
vote on that.
Oh, gosh,
Yeah.
yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we'll discuss. Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, I think that, I wanted to speak to this because I don't support raising the cap in this case, but I think that the explanation, the part that actually comes to me is, do we want to keep adding liquor stores? Has nothing to do with the rest of the kind of the store, what else is gonna go in there, because we cannot control that, and I don't believe we should be. But I think we've recognized that there is an importance in stepping in to say we want to put some of that control on liquor, not in the least because the more license we do, in the case of a liquor store, it just reduces that availability, and then it creates an environment in which there are just efforts to race to the bottom. And I don't think we want to encourage that amongst our liquor stores.
Yes, Mrs. Staples.
I do believe that we have had many discussions about licenses in general and more particularly Class C and CC licenses. So I think your concern is not with A's and not really so much with B's, but those in the C or double C.
That is my
Yes, but
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong. We are enacting the system that we voted on to have more control, which is to bring it back here if there's
Right.
an approval or denial.
Correct.
The council still gets to say whether they want another Class C to go out. So that is
Right.
what this is about.
Your
Mr.
Honor.
Went, oh, sorry. Mr.
I'll
Walden.
make a motion to approve, even though I'm not gonna vote for it, to get it on the floor.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Who, was that Mr. O'Brien? Okay, so that was Waldron and O'Brien.
Thank you.
Motion's on the floor. To approve, yes, Mr. Went.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about the suspension of the rules and the license itself, not necessarily this particular thing, but here we are. So, I agree. I mean, I believe this is why we limited the number of Cs and double Cs, but we need to have a better explanation of why we're not doing these things so that we don't run into those. I know that we've got discretion, but if you wind up then with two that happen to come on the same night, and, you know, why are you choosing this one versus that one? Because you are increasing and those sorts of things. And so I would really hope that, that staff would come back with some of that criteria that Margaret had talked about moving forward.
We will do that. There's a motion on the floor to approve the license. If there, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed?
Yay.
It's unanimous opposition to approval. All right. Where am I? Excuse me while I get reorganized there. We're at number 8, informationals. Mr. Vitas, the 2022 to 24 action plan dashboard for fiscal year 22, final report, and I guess I will also include then, if that's okay with council, February status and information report.
Thank you for combining those, Mayor, because I would have asked to do the same thing for the sake of keeping everybody here not too late this evening. Anyhow, it gives me great honor to present this council, this mayor, and this community with the final report for fiscal year 2022. As you know, we launched into a real exciting 2022 with 85 strategic goals that covered all 3 pillars, whether it was infrastructure, economy, or quality of place. We went to work as a council. You went to work as a council. We went to work as a staff, and I think we produced some tremendous results together as one big team. Probably to highlight just a few things that took place, the 85 adopted strategic goals comprised a total budget of nearly $27 million. That is significant for a community of this size. It's a significant investment that's taking place, both in the CIP and with the ARPA dollars and other general fund and water and sewer dollars that we had available, or utility funds. Of the 85 major goals that were laid out and approved in the strategic plan and then incorporated into our action plan, 22 of those goals were completed. They're done. They're now behind us. We got them done and the results are there. 21 of the goals are at 75% completion. So in one fiscal year, literally half, almost half of them are either complete or 75% toward completion. I mean, kudos to the staff. I mean, they did a great effort to get those projects up and running and underway. 10 additional goals are halfway complete. So we have 53 out of 85 goals. Remember when we sat here in this room and we looked at 85 goals and said, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with this? You know, it was terrifying, I think, for everybody in the room. We said, well, we've never been able to get that much done. Well, you know, round of applause to everybody on the council and among the staff members, and with the support of the community, I mean, business community and residents, we actually pulled it off. And I think that's something to be really proud of, because it doesn't happen like this too easily. So some of the highlights though, the broadband, we procured that painfully, slowly, but we got there. We approved that back in December, and it's going forward. You know, you're gonna hear an announcement that they're gonna start construction very, very shortly on the fiber to the premise network throughout the city. We're probably 2 to 3 weeks out, somewhere in that range. By the 1st of March, you know, we'll see things really starting to go. The Riverside Park Improvement Plan, you know, your new pool with the slides that everybody is clamoring for. Eric sent you a report from Zen City that said 98% of the people understand what we're doing. They can live with the fact that we have to keep it closed for a season in order to get it up and running quicker. You know, everything is delayed, of course, because of our economy and supply chains and issues. We know what's going on, you know, across the boards, and people in their own homes know what's going on. But that project got launched. It's underway. We expect to see that start this summer.
Yeah.
The library property development, that's 75% underway. I mean, they're getting close to starting to make decisions over at the library in terms of what to do with the 1 acre parcel, you know, and there's been, again, for all of these projects, tremendous citizen engagement. The form-based code, we're just a short way away from getting that done, and we have a great consultant on board, producing fantastic results, a lot of wonderful citizen input in that, and input from council and staff, and that will be done very shortly as well, in the first half of this year, maybe the first quarter actually, which was the target. Examine alternatives for recycling services. Well, as you know, we're going through a challenging discussion about lakeshore recycling. I mean, and we will be challenged, you know, and it comes to the point where we won't be able to have these conversations because of the way the law is written. But drop-off recycling centers, there were 4 up and running, and then 4 went down because of a lack of revenue being generated to pay for it. You know, 2 of those 4 come back. They come back online, and I think that is a significant, you know, benefit to not only those who live here in Moline, but those who live in the Quad Cities and can actually bring things to the drop-off recycling centers, as well as unincorporated folks. So that's a big win for the city. The land bank, you know, huge. Again, there's only, I believe, less than a dozen land banks in the whole state. I believe there's 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken.
7.
How many?
Alderman Moyer says 7.
7, thank you. I'm bouncing around.
I think we're 8.
Is it 8? I thought we are 8, right? So anyhow, I mean, a multi-jurisdictional effort with East Moline and Rock Island, and no simple task to start to address vacant housing and blighted properties and trying to, you know, turn that corner so that we can start to bring the city back the way we want it, or as a lot of you who are from here know what it looked like when you were kids growing up or you were young adults. So there's that. The accreditation for the police department is 99% done. I'm gonna wait for the day when the chief can make an announcement that we have an accredited police department. And kudos to them, because having an accredited police department puts us a cut above the rest. You know, that's a huge honor. And it goes on and on. I'm not gonna belabor this because I know the meeting will be long, but, you know, please take a look at the final report on the action plan. It is online. Take a look at the highlights. If there's ever any questions about that or anything in the status and information report, we're already off to a good start in January. Things are moving forward, and we're looking forward to this summer, post-election, sitting down with everybody again and starting the process anew so we can add years to this, you know, successful process that we already have. So thank you again for, you know, bearing with us for the last 12 months as we, you know, move Moline forward, because that's what it's all about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moyer?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask you a quick question about goal 2.1E, since it has some bearing on tonight.
2.1E.
Initiate single multifamily rental inspection program. I know that it says we're 80% of the way done. It says the coordinator position has been filled and the rental program and ordinance are under final edit in preparation for presentation in February. Is that?
It might be, we're targeting the end of the month. We're pushing for the 21st. If it's the 7th of March, bear with us. It's a huge lift. It's as big a lift as the Boost program, and with the Boost program, you know, if you were there last night and saw the attendance, nearly 300 people or more, plus or minus a few, right? Over 183 businesses showed up. You know, it took a lot to create that umbrella. This program is exactly that. When we talk about our vacant property registration, we talk about our single-family residential inspections, we talk about our drug-free housing, we're trying to incorporate all of those programs into an umbrella that's manageable, because they are interrelated. They're moving parts. One minute it's, you know, a nice piece of property, the next minute it starts to deteriorate, eventually it might even become blighted. So having programs in place to address that. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I look
I
forward
like
to
the
it.
stage, obviously.
Okay.
I look forward to, hopefully that'll be a light agenda night so we can really dig into that one.
Mr. O'Brien?
Just real quick, I wanted to give you kudos for the Illinois 92. I just gotta bring it up so it doesn't get pushed to the back burner. Just whenever I can, I bring it up.
It's
Thank you.
coming up.
It's
Stay
coming on, Illinois 92 corridor. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wayne?
Yeah, and I appreciate bringing it up, 21E. I think I brought it up last December, probably the same meeting regarding it, and was said that it was going to be brought up in February. But one of the things we talked about was the licensing component. You know, anytime you have things like this, you can do licensing, you can do inspections, you can do registration, or some combination of the three. But licensing keeps getting left off. It's not even mentioned in the update or anything. It needs to be incorporated as part of it. Licensing is the fastest thing you can get up and running, and probably gives you the most teeth for a community, because then you have leverage against those out-of-town people or people who own multiple properties and are letting them deteriorate. If they violate it, they can lose all of their licenses. And so I'm just frustrated because I keep bringing up licensing. We keep talking about it, and we say, yes, we want licensing. I just was reading through the minutes on the 9th, and we're like, yes, move forward. We want licensing, and it just keeps getting dropped off. I'm assuming that is going to be part of your presentation when it comes, but I've been pushing this for a number of years. I've got 8, how many meetings we got left, Mike?
9 plus the handshake.
So to get this over the finish line is something that we really want to get done, and I just don't want something to get missed.
Thank you. I wanted to add that I had sent a series of follow-up questions to particular staff I had questions on, but I was very pleased to hear that our Public Works internship that we launched last year, there is at least one student from that crop of a couple coming back for the second level, and that we are moving ahead with an administrative assistant internship working with the coordination with the school district. So thank you very much for staying on that. The last thing you want to see is a program start and then not continue, so thank you. And then also one thing that Andy Parr is going to update us on eventually here, we had initial conversations with the Special Events Committee about Moline Green, a special events checklist, right? Where we can encourage and incentivize people who are gonna have events in Moline to use sustainable options for lots of different things. There's some great ideas out there that we've worked with people in the destination management field about, with event planning field, and so there's more to come on that. We certainly don't want it to be a burden for people, but we want to continue to get people to use less plastic, single-use plastic, et cetera. Anything further on these two? Yes.
Well, everybody's patting themselves on the back. I'll be your Nelly, negative Nelly.
Oh, that's
I still have a concern about 2.2C. We put a significant amount of money into the art program, $175,000, which is sitting there, as far as I can tell, dormant as the carpet here. We need to keep our eyes on that, because remember, we also committed to our capital projects downtown, that a percentage of that money is going to go to it too, which I know I disagreed with, but as of this point, that one has no legs, so to speak. Thank you.
And just to clarify, it was not for lack of trying. They were denied by IDOT, so we'll keep pushing them to get something done.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. All right, so and if there's nothing further, we'll call the council meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation, Mr. O'Brien?
God grant us wisdom to make good decisions for the people of Moline and our neighbors. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Williams.
Present.
Macias.
Present.
Wentz.
Present.
Timian.
Present.
Moyer.
Present.
O'Brien.
Present.
Waldron.
Present.
Schmidt.
Present.
Your Honor, I request approval of Committee of the Whole Council and Executive Session, Committee of the Whole and Council meeting minutes of January 24th, 2023, and Executive Session minutes of January 10th, 2023, and January 17th, 2023, as well as appointment made during Committee of the Whole this evening, February 7th, 2023. Resolutions. Council Bill 1019-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and chief of police to execute an equitable sharing agreement and certification between the federal government and the City of Moline's Police Department, setting forth the requirements for participation in the equitable sharing program and certifying all receipts and expenditures of federal forfeiture funds, property, and interest during the last fiscal year. Council Bill 1020-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to apply for a state highway permit from the Illinois Department of Transportation and to execute the necessary forms in conjunction with the Quad Cities Marathon and Road Race, sponsored by the Quad Cities Running Club, scheduled for Sunday, September 24th, 2023. Council Bill 1021-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with AGM Environmental LLC for the 2022 waste removal project, former McKinley School and former Moline Manual Arts Building, in the amount of $66,577.10, and approving an additional contingency up to 10% of the contract amount. Council Bill 1022-2023, a resolution authorizing the Traffic Operations Division to purchase a new Iteris Next camera vehicle detection system for the intersection of 23rd Street and River Drive from Mobotrex for the amount of $19,057. Council Bill 1023-2022, a resolution authorizing the Fleet and Facilities Manager to purchase a diesel-powered walk-behind concrete saw from Logan Contractor Supply Incorporated for the amount of $48,138.10.
You misstated the council bill.
Thank you.
I misstated the council bill.
You said 2022.
Oh, thank you. So that was for 1023-2023. Thank you. Council Bill 1024-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to addendum number 1 to amended lease agreement and consent to change of trade name to an amended lease agreement between the City of Moline and Petoskey Roach Properties LLC for the Marquee Marina and Captain's Table property. Council Bill 1025-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a purchase agreement with Mid-Iowa Solid Waste Equipment Company Incorporated for a mainline sewer camera, camera-based module, and tractor, and authorizing the Director of Utilities to purchase the sewer camera equipment to be used by the Utilities Department in the amount of $60,886.
Your Honor, I move for the approval of consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson O'Brien, seconded by Alderperson Went. Roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Non-consent agenda, second reading ordinances. Council Bill
Do the
3001.
executive now, or you do it later?
No, that's under the non-consent resolutions, correct?
Oh, is it?
You're right. You're right. So if he moves that from consent to non-consent, it becomes the first item.
Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay.
So it would be the December 13th, 2022 executive session minutes for discussion.
Okay, yes. Mr. Went, anybody? You have a motion? We need a motion for that?
A motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Alderperson Schmidt, motion's there, second by Alderperson Timian. Roll call, please. No, do we need just,
Yes, now that it's on the non-consent agenda.
now that it's on non-consent, I need a roll call to accept the motion, so we don't discuss. Oh, no.
What?
Sorry.
No, we've never done this
It's out of
before, so
order,
it's,
so,
yeah.
okay. It's motioned and seconded, so we open it up for discussion. Mr. Went.
Thank you. Would we approve the city's purchase agreement in November for $3.1 million with the Heritage Church for the former Koenig site? It was contingent upon the city doing an environmental assessment on the property, and the agreement included a provision that indicated that if the assessment had found hazardous materials which would need to be remediated, the purchase price would be adjusted by the remediation costs. During the executive session that we're discussing for December 13th, the results of that environmental assessment were shared with the council. And we were told they found lead, mercury, and even cyanide that would need to be abated if the city planned to redevelop the land. Administrator Bitas indicated that we wouldn't need to abate if we didn't develop the land. I then stated my concern regarding the environmental issues found and expressed apprehension regarding the city taking title to the property and entering into the chain of title without it being abated, as it would result in the city's obligation to clean up everything on the property if we were ever to develop it or anything was to be built on it. After making those comments, the consensus of the rest of the council was to move forward, which I had my concerns, but as we know, majority rules. However, the following week, when the minutes were provided to council for review, my concerns were not included. This isn't uncommon, as the policy of the council has been comments of individuals are generally not included in the minutes unless it is to clarify a vote. So I asked that the minutes be amended to include my concerns at a subsequent executive session. Unfortunately, that request was denied, as I was told that the council had to vote as to whether those comments I made, which no one has disputed were made as they were recorded, would be included in the minutes. In the executive session, some argued that my comments shouldn't be included, as I was just trying to document that I had warned the council of the environmental ramifications of entering into the chain of title for the property that has hazardous materials and that hasn't been abated. And my request to include those comments was purely political. I say to that, leaving out what actually happened, and this warning instead is pure politics. In fact, the vote on whether to include my remarks resulted in a 4-4 vote, with the mayor voting not to include my comments. I've always said if the choice is between transparency or keeping information from the public, elected officials should always choose transparency. So with the vote that excluded my comments from the record, I was told the only avenue to share my concerns was an open session, and that is what I'm doing today. For those reasons, I cannot support the adoption of the executive session minutes that don't include the full record for December 13th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Went. Mr. Schmidt.
It is a policy that we do not include verbatim individual comments, and to request otherwise is special treatment for political purposes, and that's why I supported it, or opposed it then, and that's why I oppose it now.
Thank you. Anything further from the council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Nay.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Nay.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 nays, and that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to number 17.
Yes, thank you. Council Bill 3001-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 35 zoning and land development, Section 35-1203 definitions of the Moline Code of Ordinances by repealing subsection 104 family in its entirety and acting in lieu thereof, one new subsection 104 family dealing with the same subject matter, amending Article 3 zoning by enacting one new Division 9 entitled accessory dwelling units and amending Chapter 8 buildings and other construction and building services, Section 8-7202C of the Moline Code of Ordinances by repealing Section 8-7202C in its entirety, acting in lieu thereof, one new Section 8-7202C dealing with the same subject matter. Do we have a motion?
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderperson Timian,
I'll second.
seconded by Alderperson Moyer. Discussion. Mr. Schmidt.
In relation to ADUs, I, as a matter of property rights and as a matter of how we build forward the city of Moline, believe that an inclusion for them and allowing people to maintain control of their properties, to make homes for themselves that makes sense to them, ADUs are an important piece of that. However, I do think that in the past months, there has been given undue attention and a look to this on something that is frankly not while I believe very strongly it should be allowed, it is not my top priority. And is not something I think I want to keep fighting, especially looking through the process. I think we went out of order. We brought things forward, and we should make this part of a larger conversation about the future of Moline and all pieces we want to. And I think we need to go back to that, and this needs to be brought forward again at that time. However, this process has been filled with sabotage all the way through, and at this point, it's an ordinance that I could never support, and I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Went?
As we've discussed, the idea of an ADU is something that I had brought up a while back, but with the thought and understanding that it would be a reasonable process, that clearly there are diametrically opposed sides on this council and our community on how to approach it. And so through this process, I've attempted to find a middle ground through that process. I think that our last meeting, there was a number of changes, amendments that I think improve the ordinance. But as I said that night, that, and was reiterated here a number of times, that this must be and can only be adopted if it is included within a licensing regime that we hope is being brought here in the next couple of weeks. And so while we made that motion and it on a 4-4 vote with the tiebreaker voting against it, it failed. I would only support it if one of those people who voted against the licensing regime being a determining factor on this being implemented, changed their vote, moved to reconsider it, and brought it back up to include that as part of the ordinance. So unless that happens, I can't support it either.
Thank you. I'm going to say at this point that while my vote is not required unless there were enough to get to 6, I have a few things to say. I believe that housing legislation that makes city benefits inaccessible is wrong. That parking amendment is wrong. It preferentially treats those who have money and can make this happen for themselves. And going forward, well, to the second point, I do not believe that a piece of legislation should be held hostage by another program that has not been fully vetted by staff, least of all in terms of its fiscal impact to the city. And that is why that vote was taken, because we have to have these conversations in the proper order. Going forward, I will be calling on the Plan Commission to engage in professional development around contemporary approaches to planning and housing issues so that there can be more alignment between professional opinions and the results of Plan Commission work. I'm very excited to be opening that dialogue with the Plan Commission Chair, Vicki Graves, and I agree with her assessment that the amendments are not worth it. Last time we met, she said start over, don't amend it and change it. And that is what it has borne out for myself. So I don't believe I'll be called on to vote, but that's my thought process and reasoning. Mr. O'Brien.
Well, for me, it was as simple as this, as an alderman, your number one job, in my opinion, is to protect property values. That's why we're here. We want to make our property more valuable. We want to make our communities more valuable. After reading this and looking at some of the things that could happen, and I'm for hiring more staff to police what we've got already, I never felt this was good for property owners. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Wendt.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with the mayor more that there is a process, and couldn't agree more that the licensing program should have been considered prior to bringing this for a final vote. But I want to remind the council that I moved to table this until that program had been presented so that we could consider that at the same time. And again, on a 4-4 vote, it went down with a tie-breaking vote saying, no, we did not want to table it until that program was presented. And so I'm I guess somewhat confused on what the process was being communicated there, but I agree that the licensing, I've been pushing it for years for single family. It hasn't had traction. I'm not sure why, but I was hoping that this may be the impetus to get it done. If this doesn't happen, so be it, but the licensing regime needs to be presented, moved forward, and passed. It is, people talk about, can we afford it or whatever, and I say our neighborhoods, we can't afford not to do it to protect our neighborhoods. And so I'm looking forward to your presentation later this month.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Just to add on, Alderman Schmidt made the remark earlier about the race to the bottom, and I think our unregulated rental properties in the city of Moline they're dragging us down to that bottom, and if we don't get a hold of them, the ADUs will just be another layer to ruin the city, ruin the neighborhoods that so many people work so hard and to make our city what it is. So for all the right reasons, sometimes we make the wrong choices out of order, and I think it's represented in this ADU ordinance, and that's why I can't support it.
Thank you. If there's no further comments, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Nay.
Waldron.
Nay.
Schmidt.
Nay.
Williams.
Nay.
Macias.
Nay.
Wentz.
Nay.
Timian.
Nay.
Moyer.
Nay.
8 nays and no ayes. That motion fails.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we move to the
Resolutions.
resolutions.
Council Bill 1026-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Ostrom Painting and Sandblasting Incorporated for project number 1411, 2023 pavement marking program for the amount of $254,330.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion by Alderperson Went, seconded by Alderperson Timian. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams. Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. House Bill 1027-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an agreement for purchase Moline CNG station equipment replacement upgrade between the city of Moline, the Rock Island County Metropolitan Mass Transit District, MetroLink, and Clean Energy, a Newport Beach, California-based for-profit company.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderperson Went,
Second?
second by Alderperson O'Brien. Discussion. I just want to, I did double check this with the city administrator. While this is an amazing gift through our partnership with MetroLink, I do just want the council to keep in mind this is something we're taking on that increases our maintenance costs. So as we talk about needing staff and et cetera, there's just, some things can be hidden expenses that we're not expecting. And you've heard me talk about wanting to make sure we consider maintenance costs, and I didn't want to fail to bring that up. Yes, Mr.
Can you provide to us what those additional maintenance
I
costs are?
don't know them. I just confirmed that we would be responsible for the maintenance costs after this project is complete.
Do we
Mr.
have
Vita.
an idea of what that looks like? I mean, that's something that's being thrown out there.
Mike, maybe you can explain what maintenance costs have been for the previous 10-year period while MetroLink was responsible for the maintenance and for the grant that put it here in the first place, and now they're moving forward with us. Again, them paying for it, but this time us paying for the next 10 years of maintenance.
I believe they run somewhere, from talking with the facilities manager, around $15,000 or $20,000 a year. The cost of the new CNG station is 1.9, $1.9 million, and I believe the life expectancy is approximately 20 years. So just to give you an idea, if you look at it over the long period, 15 to 20,000 a year. Obviously, a new station, we hope those costs don't happen right off the bat, but they will increase over time. So right now, about $15,000 to $20,000 a year, and then expect at some point around 20 years or so, that system will be inadequate.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Warren.
So with the old one that was at near its useful life, it was $15,000 to $20,000 a year for that maintenance, or is that people, or is that what are we talking about operating costs here?
That's maintenance.
Those would be operation and maintenance costs of the system.
So with a brand new one coming out, what percentage? I mean, maintenance. I mean,
It'll be less than
if
that.
it's brand new, then it's going to be.
Hopefully zero. I don't know the exact warranty deeds, but usually those run a number of years, and so warranty for the product, so there should be no charge. I would estimate for the first 2 to 3 years, and then the cost would start to incur after that. And that's an estimate.
Thank you. Mr. Warren.
Was there any conversations after that you said we're responsible for 10 years? What were the conversations on what happens? You know, they took the last 10 years, we're taking this, or are they taking, for us, if they take then the sunset 10 years of this, is that the agreement? What's the
agreement originally went, as I understand it, was when the CNG system was installed in the city. MetroLink was responsible for providing the grant funds to actually acquire the CNG filling station. At that time, they didn't have that space that they're in today. And that was a shared facility. They absorbed the maintenance cost during the life expectancy of this equipment. This equipment had its life shortened by a major lightning strike in May of last year and left us crippled without CNG. And 30% of the fleet uses CNG down in Public Works. So you can't just replace it. So Metrolink again went out and was able to secure a grant. I think it's 1.916 million, somewhere in that range. But with the caveat, since they had built their facility and they have their own CNG operating station and the maintenance costs associated with, that they would get the grant, we would provide the location. Hopefully it's not a lightning pad this time. And then we would in turn then absorb the maintenance going forward, because we back each other up is really what it comes down to.
Got it. Well, it's not,
And there's no exact number of what future maintenance would be on this CNG station any more than buying a brand new car. You have no idea what's gonna happen.
Thank you.
During a warranty or post-warranty.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, excuse me, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Wentz.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1028-2023, a resolution authorizing the Fleet and Facilities Manager to purchase a JCB electric-powered scissor lift from Casey Equipment for the amount of $19,600.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson O'Brien, seconded by Alderperson Went. Discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Waldron.
I had some concerns about this back in 2022, and I see we're carrying it forward into 2023. Scissor lifts and lifts in general are pretty easy to rent. And we have 2 businesses in Moline proper that you can rent these from. And I still have a concern about fleet creep, where you keep adding equipment to the fleet, which then involves it back to chargebacks to all the individual departments. So there is a short-term cost to this to purchasing and a long-term cost to it. And I'm not so sure with what they've documented for what it's going to be used for, that renting still wouldn't be better. So I don't think I'm going to support this.
Question for you, Mr. Waldron, or maybe also Mr. Doy. How easy is it to get the equipment for rental on a schedule that we need it on? You know, I mean, are we delaying our work if we don't own the equipment?
I have not been around for 6.5 years to
All
know
right,
if
so
it's
that would be
changed.
Mr. Doy.
If it's changed, but in the previous 20-something years, it was quite easy to get a lift.
Okay.
There are basically 2 things. One would be the scheduled maintenance, and then there are things that happen from time to time where something's needed on a quicker basis. This piece of equipment can be used not just by Public Works, but there are other departments who have expressed interest in having it for different things. So obviously, the more use we get out of it, the more opportunity, or the more it benefits us from having that piece of equipment.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Here, seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Nay.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Nay.
Macias.
Aye.
Wentz.
Nay.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
5 ayes, 3 nays, and that motion passes.
Thank you.
Council Bill 1029-2023, a resolution approving and accepting proposed changes to prior contract language as agreed to by and between the City of Moline and Metro Fiber Net LLC, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a memorandum of understanding incorporating said changes with Metro Fiber Net LLC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson O'Brien, seconded by Alderperson Timian. Discussion. Hearing none, okay, yes, Mr. Moyer?
So I just wanted to ask a question about the coverage map. And are there,
Margaret.
I'm sorry, I was looking at Mr. Vitas. Okay, the coverage map, they're actually asking us to take, I didn't quite understand, they're asking us to take that out. And what guarantees do we have that if 2 years down the road, they're not providing coverage in Ward 1 or somewhere else? What rights do we have to come back to them and force them to provide coverage?
So I would start by saying that MetroNet brought this to us because they believed that they had made a drafting error, and that not the map itself, but that language that appeared under the map on original Exhibit B conflicted in a way or could be construed to conflict with the language in the body of the agreement under 1D. So the map, so what they asked us to bring to you was to just delete the language that appeared on their Exhibit B and rely instead on the language in the agreement, which of course you've already approved. So the map itself, the coverage map has not changed.
So
So the agreement has not changed.
Right, the agreement has not changed. The map that is on Exhibit B has not changed. The only difference is that language, which cited two exceptions to providing fiber service in the original Exhibit B. That is deleted, or they propose to delete that. Now, those two exceptions on original Exhibit B are also included in the agreement, the body of the agreement. Their belief, I think, and I think we all agree on this, is that because the other two exceptions that to providing fiber service that appear in the actual agreement were not in that original Exhibit B, that it could create some confusion, and that it would be better early on to clarify by just deleting any reference to exceptions that appeared on Exhibit B. So really nothing in the agreement has changed, and the map has not changed. And the intent of the parties to provide service to every resident has not changed.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Williams.
Margaret, to follow up Sam's question, so let's say down the road they don't, even though they have the intent, they don't provide to people in the first ward, what recourse do we then have as a city?
So it would, well, first we would determine whether it fell under any of the exceptions in the agreement. If it did, and they include like whether there is other service already provided, whether it's economically not feasible to get to the residents. Let me see. So the expansion requirements are everything except the following. Where residents are confirmed to have the ability to receive fiber from another provider. Whether the, or if the provider is asked to provide a network to a private property where the owner of the property will not allow access. When I'm trying to paraphrase. In any area, if the cost of construction, including labor and materials, pole attachment, make-ready costs, increases to a point where construction is no longer economically feasible.
There's no talking while someone else is talking. Thank you.
And then, if the city has not complied with, its obligations in the agreement. So those would be the, situations where they could not, could fail to provide service and not be in breach of the agreement. Otherwise, we have a breach of the agreement.
Okay, well, Your
Yep,
Honor.
yes, this is number 2.
So the pockets in the first ward that have MediaCom and loathe it and can't, and are very excited about Metronet and this coverage that we've told them now for the last 3 years, this council's worked so hard to provide. This agreement allows Metronet to say, we don't want to go in there because they're already served by someone else, another provider, and those people won't, if Metronet chooses not to, this agreement gives them the ability to not go in there. That's what we're signing off on.
That is a possibility. Now, I just want to point out that what is in front of you tonight is not, that is not language that we are looking to add. That was language in the agreement that you approved last month.
Mr. Timian?
Just some clarity here. The contract does not say if they have MediaCom or cable internet, they won't qualify for fiber. It says if they have the ability to receive fiber from another provider.
If they have it already.
Well, so if the street is wired up for Geneseo, Metronet's not going to wire up your street. That's what the agreement says. The false narrative that if you have MediaCom cable, you won't get Metronet is a blatant lie and misinformation. And I think it needs to be on the record that that is not true, and it needs to stop being repeated, because it is hurting people. People are getting really upset about this, and it is just insane. And it's being repeated again on the floor tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Went.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not sure if Sam's point got answered. I think he was asking about timing, and that's the other issue with this agreement is we'll never get to a point where they're in breach because there is no time requirement that they have to actually get anything done. So you go through the process. When are you going to say, oh, well, you haven't served this neighborhood? You're like, well, we're still building out. But anyway, I digress. So bear with me. This might take a bit long, as the last time we discussed this issue, debate was closed before all questions were asked, issues could be considered, or motions were made. So I'm going to do it all right here. In the lead up to this council voting on a Metronet agreement that we are considering amending today, Mr. Vitas stated that the goal of the project was no home left behind, and there will be teeth in the agreement to ensure this. With the passage of the Metronet contract in December, the city sent out a press release that stated, quote, with the City Council's approval, the Metronet development agreement to provide fiber to the premises of all homes and businesses in Moline, we are one step closer to becoming a smart city. Unfortunately, nowhere in the main body of the Metronet agreement does it say that Metronet is required to provide service to every home in Moline. And from my reading, there are no teeth to ensure that they will not leave any home behind. In fact, the only place it even references that Metronet will provide coverage to the entire city is Exhibit B, which currently, under the map that shows the entire city in blue, it states, quote, Metronet's FTTP network will be available in every neighborhood in Moline as illustrated by the blue color on the map above. And then it goes on to say that there are 2 caveats. Can you take one and pass this around? The first caveat, which is included in the body of the agreement, states, quote, provider has no obligation to construct the provider network in any area where residents are confirmed to have the ability to receive fiber services from another provider. A simple reading of this caveat shows the competition we have been promised is an illusion, and Metronet is specifically exempt from installing where they would have to compete. The second caveat is reasonable and details the installation of service on private drives and multi-unit properties, which from my understanding should not be an issue due to the 1996 Telecom Act, which ensures competition and requires property owners to provide reasonable accommodations and installation of service for their tenants. With that being said, I am concerned with the proposal by our staff to remove the last vestiges of reference to Metronet covering the entire city. I have asked the following questions of staff and the mayor and have yet to receive substantive answers. And this goes to a few of the questions that were already asked. Please provide where in the Metronet agreement it requires Metronet to provide fiber services to all residents and businesses in Moline. And I think that was just answered, that there isn't one. Where in the agreement are there teeth to ensure that no home is left behind in Moline? Please point out to me any penalties if Metronet does not follow through any obligation under the agreement. And again, this was just discussed that they'd be in breach, but there was no penalties and no time frame on it. Where in the agreement are there any time frames that require installation of the network to all residents and businesses in Moline? Again, what happens if Metronet chooses not to serve some neighborhoods in Moline within a reasonable time? Can they just be under construction in perpetuity? Are there any neighborhoods in Moline that have the ability to receive fiber services, thereby resulting in Metronet having no obligation to provide a network at this time? All these questions I have received no substantive satisfactory reply. Moreover, requests for information and copies of communications related to this change we're considering tonight have not been provided, and I've been relegated to going through the FOIA process, which conveniently won't provide me the information until after tonight's vote. As an elected official, the answer should be made and information provided to elected officials. I spoke with an alderman from Rock Island just yesterday, and even though they passed their agreement with Metronet in 2020, they are continuing to have issues with the network not being built out in the city, especially in those low and moderate income neighborhoods. And in fact, the MLK Center that was to be supplied with service per their agreement still hasn't happened. He was told that in his neighborhood, no less than a dozen residents would be required to make a financial commitment before they would supply service to their block, and then only if they were within a certain number of feet of a trunk, of which there are none in the low and moderate income neighborhoods. I've heard from the mayor that this is a take it or leave it agreement, but I believe all the residents of Moline deserve better and want someone to try to fight for their best interests. So in conclusion, I pray that Metronet will do everything the city has been promised in press releases, that they will build out the entire city and serve every house and business, that they will clean up after themselves when they install their fiber and fix what they damage. But as an alderman, I can't operate on faith alone. Therefore, I make the following amendment to the motion on the floor. I move to strike the language that states the build-out is illustrated in Attachment B is expressly subject to the terms of the agreement under the map on Exhibit B and replace it with the following. The goal of the agreement is for Metronet's FTTP network to be available in every neighborhood, home, and business in Moline, as illustrated by the blue color on the map above. It is understood that within the body of the agreement, there are certain provisions under paragraph 1D which may result in minor limitations on the areas of installation in the network, but those provisions shall be strictly and narrowly interpreted.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Williams. Discussion? Mr. Wine.
While this amendment does not cover the time frame, does not cover the issues of penalties or teeth or ensuring that they actually do it, because I know those are non-starters with this group. I think at least this keeps the vestiges of what we did vote, that the intent of this agreement is that everyone is being served. And they're concerned that this conflicts with paragraph 1D, it lays that out as well. But it also makes sure that the city is protected, because if you take this out completely, the onus will be on us to prove up that they didn't do things. If you leave this in there, then at least we can say, hey, this was what our agreement, the intent was always that everyone would be served, and if you don't, then you have to prove up why you meet one of these exceptions. So I urge you to support this amendment.
Mr. Timian.
Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize if I'm yanking at cables here, but I kind of want to address something. This amendment is another opportunity to derail the whole conversation. This is not a perfect agreement, but the reason it's not perfect is because an alderman in this room was interfering with code enforcement and interacting with this company and almost sour the entire negotiation. If you want to blame someone for this not being what we want it to be, we can point fingers, but it is not at the people trying to clean up the code. When we talk about not getting special treatment to get information as demanded, on demand from members of the city, this demand to have extreme openness about every single piece of thing that happened for an agreement that has been signed is silly, especially considering the people requesting it, by their own admission, participated in ex parte communication with someone bidding on this project while the bid was active. On this floor on July 11th, or July 12th, I apologize, Alderman Wendt confirmed he was having communication with another participant that was bidding on this process. According to our city code, he needed to share all communications with this body. He did not do that. It made him ineligible to vote on this thing. This whole procedure has been one thing after another attempting to derail this one contract. And it seems like there is a reason for it. If we dig a little bit deeper, I think the actions of the council members show what it is. If you want to laugh about conspiracies, this conspiracy is being laid out right in front of us.
Mr. Wine. Number 2.
To the point regarding the communication, the Geneseo Communications person did reach out to me. They had a few questions. I provided them with some answers. Alderman Schmidt FOIA'd everything, all communications, and clearly nothing was ever brought up about it after that. So clearly there are no issues. If not, I assure you Alderman Schmidt would have brought up if there was anything that was inappropriate. But it was certainly, as an alderman, if people ask questions and I point them in the right direction, there is nothing inappropriate about that. So to try to collude or say that I was colluding with someone or something like that is utterly false. And again, all the information through FOIA was obtained, and there were no issues. And I never hid anything. So along those lines, again, this is just to obfuscate the real issue that this agreement is not what we're being told. We're told in press release after press release or press conference that this is going to provide for everyone in the city. I think that was a direct quote. And so I hope and I pray that that is the case. As an attorney, I don't hope and pray that people send press releases and that is binding. You have in your agreement what people are obligated to do, and then people follow those obligations. Rock Island, like I said, talking with elected officials over there, they've had this for whatever it is now, 2.5 years, and they're still running into it. I've talked with other elected officials in other communities, and they're running into it. Like I said, I hope and pray that maybe through this process, they'll say, well, we'll show Alderman Went, and they provide it to everybody, and that would be a win. That would be terrific. But my fear is 2 years from now, because I think we were told that it was going to be like 18 months to 24 months, and the entire city would be built out. My fear is 18 months, 24 months, there are going to be a number of pockets and a number of areas in the city that aren't covered, just like are happening in our neighboring communities. And that is my concern. And tonight, we're asking us to vote the last absolute vestige where it says that this will be provided to all the homes in Moline to be wiped off of and out of the agreement. And I honestly, if you talk about conspiracies, I think when they went through in a rush to eliminate all conversations from earlier drafts of this, in which it said that everybody would be served, that they removed all of those, but forgot to do it in Exhibit B. And then after it was passed, they said, oh my goodness, it's still there, we need to take it out. Because otherwise, they could just simply, if their issue was just the conflicts, they could leave that information in there, just like I'm saying, and just say that this is what we'll do, except for the conflicts in paragraph 1D, and that would have solidified it. But they're asking for the entire thing to be wiped out, and that just doesn't make sense as an attorney.
Thank you. Ms. Kostopoulos, and I know you've had your, well, we'll start here with Mr. Schmidt.
Only to address briefly in that it was mentioned, yes, when Alderman Went had reached out to me, sharing information that he had received from a provider, but when I asked for his source, he wouldn't give it to me. He said he chose to not pass that along, and so I submitted a FOIA request, and I certainly don't think that's something that city officials should not be subjected to. I didn't object to it now, and I don't object to the practice.
Excuse me, you don't have the floor.
And I don't object to the practice now, subjected to any member of council. The idea that I just look at this and see a plain reading of this agreement, looking at what we agreed to under provider's obligations, network, subject to the form set forth in this section 1, provider will build the provider network so that fiber services will be available to residential and commercial customers in the territory set forth in the map attached hereto as Exhibit B, with a map that covers the entirety of the city. Understanding, of course, the exceptions that are laid out that Margaret had read for us. This says in plain text that they will give coverage to the whole city. It says it right here in the agreement by referring directly to a map of the whole city. The suggestion that that's not included in the agreement is just false. And that is here, and the other cities are organizations that did not fight for this requirement, did not ask for this to be part of that agreement. It wasn't built into their agreements. We have. And are there opportunities, could there be, to say we want more teeth, we want more aggressive time schedules? Perhaps. But this is the agreement we have. It does state what we have advertised. And I think we need to move forward with the agreement as it is, because what they've asked us to do is simply removing a paragraph that, to my reading, replicates the exceptions that are included in the actual agreement. But it is removing one of 2 instances so that there can be no confusion, that only one remains valid.
So I will remind you to thank you for your comments, but that got to keep them focused on the amendment that's under discussion right now that Mr. Went proposed. Ms. Kostopoulos.
So I actually, Alderperson Schmidt took a lot of what I was gonna point out, that this may be duplicative to what is in the agreement. I would also just remind you that discussion or regret by not stronger language and enforcement may not be really relevant, because you have already approved the agreement. And for good or bad, you have signed it, they have signed it. We are only here to talk about the amendment.
Thank you. Is there anything further on this amendment, Mr. Timian?
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it practice, Margaret, to amend a memorandum of understanding? Because my understanding is they're saying, here's our understanding, do you agree? And if we reply, no, this is your understanding, we agree with this, it feels a little bit that we say no or yes. And that feels like how the conversation should go.
Well, the memorandum of understanding really operates like a side letter that we're agreeing to make an amendment without amending the actual agreement.
But amending that amendment.
I'm not sure.
Call the question.
have an
That's
opinion
fine.
on that.
We have an alderperson who's called the question on this amendment. We need a vote. Do you need a, is there a second to calling the question?
I
Hearing-
usually don't get a
Yeah,
second.
I know. Hearing
It's okay.
none,
Try,
that, that motion fails. Any further comments on this amendment?
Who made a motion to call the question? It was Mr. O'Brien. Thank you, sorry.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call on the amendment. Alderman O'Brien.
Nay.
Waldron.
Nay.
Schmidt.
Nay.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Nay.
Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Nay.
Moyer.
Aye.
3 ayes, 5 nays, and that motion fails.
Okay, so we're back to the motion on the floor of the MOU as it stands. I'll reiterate what Mr. Schmidt brought up, that when I took office, I told you all, I gave you a piece of paper, I believe, that said process was a guidepost for this administration. And I will not use special treatment to just hand over things and potentially have incorrect and incomplete information shared with an alderperson. There is no problem having to go through a formal process because that's the right process. So playing games with all of this storytelling is what this community is tired of. We need to get to the business that is at hand. You will get your information, and that's all there is to it, is we'll focus on process. Are there any other comments? Yes, on the motion itself.
Well, I'm
This
going to follow
amendment.
up what you just spoke about, so I figure it must be in order if the chair had those conversations. The problem has been, and I can certainly provide you with dozens and dozens of examples of questions, requests for information, and it would go weeks and sometimes months before any answer from staff on certain things. And so the concern becomes when you have something that is being voted on and you ask questions about it well in advance, because we get this stuff on 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon if we're lucky. And I do my best, take time away from my family and everything, to read it as soon as humanly possible so I can send in questions on Fridays and Saturdays. So there is plenty of time for answers to be provided. We used to historically get a draft of the minutes or the agenda on Thursday, which helped in this process, but we just get it at the end of the day on Friday. And so asking for that information so that we are ready to make informed decisions on Tuesday, I don't think is too much to ask for. And then to hide behind, oh, you have to go through a FOIA request, that's fine. But I said specifically, provide me with what you got. If you don't hit everything, that's fine. But
Mr.
that's all
Well,
right.
we all
So-
know that is not how you would operate. If there was
No.
something missed, you 100% would point it out.
If through the
And
FOIA,
so
if through the
what we're
FOIA
doing-
process, something was missed,
I'm not gonna
absolutely.
argue with you. I'm gonna tell you,
You
as
are?
the mayor, that you are just have to follow the process that's in place already. That's in place. That's just how it is.
And if answers were
Any
were
further
done in
questions?
a
You're
timely
done.
manner,
You're done. You
that
don't
would be
have the
terrific.
floor anymore. Thank you. Do we have any further comments on this MOU motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Nay.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Nay.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Nay.
5 ayes, 3 nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1030-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Centennial Contractors of the Quad Cities Incorporated for project number 1415, 2023 patching program for the amount of $1,607,675.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Timian, seconded by Alderperson Went. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1031-2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to accept the final report of Infrastructure Management Services, IMS, pavement condition report for the city of Moline.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Schmidt, seconded by Alderperson O'Brien. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Dryer has-
Glad we
Sorry,
got it.
I didn't see you. I didn't see your hand.
I'm sorry, we have a presentation from IMS, if that's the council's pleasure. I'm sure they'd be happy not to provide it, it's up to you. It would be about 15 minutes long.
Can I, I'm gonna suggest that we actually schedule that appropriately as a presentation, if the council needs it.
We bring it back at the next meeting or the meeting after that, just for presentation purposes, if the council desires.
10 weeks from now.
Mr. Moyer.
Thank you. I went through what they provided, and we've been excited to get this thing going. And the data is great. The decision-making tool is, I think, really amazing. And so anyway, I think we're all just very excited about it.
Yes, Mr. White.
It's awesome, although I know that I'm gonna have some residents that are upset that some of their colors are not as red as they expect. But that's exactly why we've been pushing to do this for a number of years, and I'm glad it's finally done and made it before the next 8 meetings.
Mr. Dryer, that was a question I wanted to share, was if the company or anyone has good information about how to communicate the grading system. And because I think that there's a perception, like when I saw the percentage of, or what our number was, I thought it would be lower. And I think a lot of our residents think that the quality of the roads are lower. And so I want to adjust, or I want to educate in whatever way is necessary. If you could find anything from the company or from your professional field about how to talk that through with residents, that'd be really helpful.
I can say that it's a process that the Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Air Force developed to rate pavements back in 1976. So, and it's a American Society of Testing and Materials ranking as well, looking at the number of linear feet of cracks, potholes, weeding, rutting, potholes, everything. And so it's tends to be scientific. Now, every community is going to have their subjective view of, I want my street better than what this system may say is good, but it's kind of ranking everything the same so we can compare it to one another.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I think when it comes to this, the idea is hopefully we'll get this and we'll be able to address the absolutes and then address the things that we can do in a less expensive way sooner. But I think that it is really important that this information be publicly accessible. Because I think I trust people. They'll look at things, they may not completely understand it, but if they see the color coding and be like, hey, there's other streets that are redder than mine or whatever, they're gonna get done beforehand. I think that our residents are smart enough that we can provide this on the website, that they can review it, and I think will also be a resource when we have people who say, hey, well, why isn't this street getting done? That you can point them to the source, that we are being objective about this, because that has historically been one of the concerns, is certain streets or certain places wound up getting done, and it's because somebody knew somebody or whatever, and that is something we want to take out of the equation, and so that's why I think having this public for the residents is important.
You can get Tori to work on that communication plan.
We can do
Got
a
it.
lot of things.
Thank you. All right, yes, Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do they offer like a add-on where there's some sort of interactive map that people can go and plug into their website? Do they offer that service? Because it's great data, but I don't think the residents are gonna read 76 pages.
We have worked with our
GIS.
people to create some maps that show basically the conditions of the streets as it was in May of last spring. So yes, we can have that.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be really helpful.
Okay, are we ready
Yes.
to vote? Yes. Roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Wentz.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. First reading ordinances.
I have a question here from Mr. Schmidt, I think.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I meant to ask before. If I'd like to discuss an item under first reading ordinances and to propose an amendment, do I have to make a motion to put that onto the floor? What's the process for that?
Well, you can just do it when I read it, and we can have discussion on first reading ordinances. That's fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
On 3004.
Okay, thank you. So Council Bill 3004-2023 is an ordinance amending Chapter 14, Food and Food Handlers of the Moline Code of Ordinances by repealing Chapter 14 in its entirety and acting in lieu thereof one new Chapter 14, Food Sanitation, dealing with the same subject matter.
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I propose an amendment to section 14-2206, license fees and pavement in the license chart to replace schools with schools only public schools.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Schmidt, seconded by Alderperson Waldron. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I spoke to this when we last brought it forward, and I'm bringing it back at the council floor because I think it requires our due consideration. That it is not the right and the role of our tax dollars.
Point of inquiry or point of order question?
Mr. Warren.
Did you vote against it last time?
I voted
During the council?
against the amendment,
Yes, but
and I
it's
voted
not-
against the item, yes.
Okay, so is it appropriate if he voted on the losing side of it to make that motion again?
I'm not making a
didn't
motion
make-
again. It was an amendment at the last meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, that's,
To make a motion on the now at the council level.
on the
To
same
appeal.
item. I don't know, parliamentary procedure typically says that if an
But
item has.
I'm gonna turn it over to our
Okay.
council. Thank you.
So I need, and maybe Janine, you can refresh my memory. Was this a motion last time?
It was.
Yeah.
It wasn't normally, that speaks to consideration on an item. So I haven't seen it in this case that he's not able to make that motion again.
We made a vote on it.
He's not asking to reconsider.
He's not
No,
asking for.
but we made a vote on this particular item within the ordinance.
Right, but sometimes things do come back when people have had time to think about it, there's more information, so I wouldn't think there's a problem with this, but I would ask Margaret and David.
But again,
For
were we,
reconsider.
it was in cow, correct?
Yes.
And there was.
You're correct, yep.
And there was a motion to amend the ordinance amendments.
So to make a motion, would I have to make a motion of reconsideration against that amendment? That would then have to be seconded by someone who voted in favor.
No,
It has to be made by
Yeah,
somebody. Go ahead.
I don't mind it, Mr. Silverman.
Admittedly, I'm a little bit confused about the procedural position where we're at, but insofar as it's a motion to reconsider, it has to be made by someone who was on the prevailing side of the last vote. And it has to be done at the next voting meeting, which I'm assuming is
Yeah, and
tonight.
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, meets that.
But since this isn't a motion to reconsider, and I don't think that would be
No, it-
appropriate
But
at this time.
I think that it should be a motion.
Okay, so it should be to clarify, this should be a motion to reconsider that amendment to this chapter 4.
Made by the
To-
prevailing side.
It should be a motion to reconsider the
Public school,
ordinance. Yeah,
the public
the
school.
ordinance,
And if that is the case, then I believe that Mr. Schmidt is not eligible to make that motion.
right, sorry.
Your Honor, he voted for the, no, you're right.
No,
Yeah,
he didn't.
that's why I asked that question.
You are the losing side of the last vote, Alderman?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
okay,
you can't make that
Mr.
motion.
Macias?
Well, I voted for it last
You
time,
could make
and
a-
after
Yeah, then
thinking
you could.
about it, I feel the same way. So I'll go ahead and,
So he needs to make the motion to reconsider the entire ordinance, and then is it a second motion to reconsider that
We're not
amendment?
reconsidering it.
No,
you
we're just
could
doing,
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a motion to reconsider that amendment to that ordinance, correct?
no, I
No.
believe it's a motion to reconsider the ordinance
Correct.
revisions. To include the reference in 14-2206, is that it?
Yes.
To include the restrictive language of public schools as opposed to the current language of schools only.
Got it. So it sounds like she just said what you were saying, but you need to say it. No, it's fine, we worked through
I
it.
couldn't remember.
let me restate
Okay,
it. So.
Mr. Macias.
Don't try, just say
So moved.
so moved.
All right, seconded by Alderperson Timian.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Can I just get clarification?
Yes. We're voting, you are voting on a motion to go back to what it was originally presented, which was public schools only.
But we voted to
Well-
pass it for all schools.
Correct.
Right.
Now this,
Do you
We
need,
go back
I
to
will let
just
the legal counsel say it correctly.
Okay, you are reconsidering the ordinance revisions from last meeting, which essentially did not include the reference of public schools and maintain the reference only as schools. That is what is on the floor right now.
Got
So
it.
when Alderman Macias made his motion, did it do both things to call reconsideration and make the amendment, or do we still need to propose the amendment? I'm happy to do that again if it just makes it clearer.
You don't want my
I think
opinion,
it
but-
was both.
This isn't right.
Say that one more time.
I believe it was both.
Yeah, this isn't right.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Williams?
I just think that just by isolating public schools and not private schools or parochial schools, I don't think that's fair because the taxpayers support the public schools and then they also support their own education, whether it be parochial or private. And I think it's fair for the city to provide tax money for all schools regardless. I don't think we should divvy up and divide. I think that whether you're on scholarship or you can provide a private education, I think the city with the tax money to make it equal, and we're not talking large amounts of money, that's the only fair way to do it.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt?
And as I was beginning to lay out, my opposition to this is in diverting tax money into private schools, which are private businesses. And in a case where anything that a private business is eligible for, I have no problem including private schools in receiving of that. But when we are looking at funding that is going toward a school, it should be exclusive to our public education system. And as we think of, if this was really about, fairness, then why isn't it touching on home daycares? Why isn't it touching on child care centers? That sort of thing, but I don't think that's what it was. I think this was looking for a way to provide extra money into these certain religious institutions that don't belong there. I support Seton with my tithing, and I support the Moline School District with my taxes, and those should be separate. And I have a very strong belief in that. It's actually a religiously held belief that when religious institutions, when my church gives in to special privileges from the government, it actually means they can't act the way they want to act freely. So to me, it is a very complicated issue and a very big one that I hold very sincerely and strongly, and I do not think we should be doing that. To me, it's obviously it's not a lot of money, but it's a hard line that should not be crossed.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Your Honor. To say that these are businesses is just not true. That they are this quasi in between. They don't pay property taxes, just like the schools don't pay property taxes. They are not like a business, and so we as a society and through our law, there are a number of things. I would probably be willing to have a discussion about daycare, because I think the educating of our kids is a very important thing. And so that's where, we do things, we voted, and I think you voted a number of times for things for the YMCA, the young, what is it? The
Young Christian.
Yeah, it's Christian. So to say that this is where I'm drawing the line, the line is blurry, and I am the first one to admit it. I just think when it comes to school licensing for this, it was appropriate to say, hey, all of our schools, we're going to treat them the same, and that's why I proposed it, and that's why I'll support it.
Anything further? Roll call on this adjustment.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Nay.
Walken.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Nay.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Nay.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Nay.
4 ayes, 4 nays.
Aye. That
And that
amendment
motion
passes.
passes.
You give me direction on what is next.
So next you vote on the ordinance itself.
Okay.
So they underline, the original.
Well, we don't vote on it.
item.
This is first reading.
No.
Oh,
it's
I'm
first
sorry,
reading.
you're
Yes,
right,
thank you.
thank you.
Got it. Okay, so
Yeah.
we can move to our other first reading.
Council Bill 3005-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 35 zoning and land development of the Moline Code of Ordinances by enacting an amendment to the zoning map incorporated therein as Section 35-3103, 7002 John Deere Parkway. Council Bill 3006-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 35 zoning and land development, Article 1, Division 2, Section 35-1203 definitions, the Moline Code of Ordinances by revising certain definitions related to nonconformities, amending Article 3, Division 1, entitled In General, dealing with the same subject matter, and Article 5, Division 3, entitled Illumination Standards for Internal Consistency. And that is all I have this evening.
Thank you. All right, we're to miscellaneous business. Just a couple updates from me. As you know, the Boost program attendance was amazing. I appreciate the older persons who were able to be there. I know Western was disappointed that they couldn't have the sound or the room that we had hoped for, but I still think that people got the information, and we will be making, if we haven't already, making those recordings available, et cetera. It gives us a lot of food for thought for the future of this program and how we might continue to support it, because we certainly want to see businesses open, but stay open as well, and continue to grow that pot of entrepreneurs. I wanted to also update you on a community leader lunch I had at the Arsenal today with with General Wilson. and other major leaders there. It was a great conversation, and I think we have some good things to talk about when it comes to workforce. And they were interested in the Boost program. They're interested in every way that they can connect to our local communities. And if you remember at the 150, they had a large presence there. We'll continue to be in contact with them. And then finally, an update on the trip and the outcome of the trip I took with local mayors and their chiefs, led by Davenport, and the conversation with the Department of Justice about ATF and FBI resources increasing here in the Quad Cities and meetings to meet some needs we have. I did just get a follow-up memo just this afternoon, so I have not digested it yet, from Davenport based on our follow-up conversations. And I don't know, Chief, if you want to just give them a little bit of a snippet of what we're talking about. It's something that our partners at the Senate level on both sides of the river are really trying to go to bat for us, for the Quad Cities, to help us with crime.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So after the mayor returned with the other elected officials, as she mentioned, I've been part of a work group with the Rock Island chief, the Davenport chief, the Bettendorf chief, and we've been gathering information, doing a lot of research. Shout out to Brian Lear, the library, who did a wonderful assist on doing some research from the 90s and getting some news articles that were written about some of the efforts that many of you may have been a part of at that time, back then when we were asking for federal resources such as the creation of the U.S. Attorney's Office and things like that. So we have been doing the follow-up to gather the information, kind of giving our perspective of the resources that are available, and then Davenport has been compiling that into a white paper, which I believe is what the mayor is referring to today. So we will be meeting tomorrow on Zoom with some of those staffers and continuing the discussions. I think they've been very good. I think everybody wants to do the right thing, but as you know, nationwide, it's what resources are available and where they can go and the bodies that can be assigned. So I think they've been productive conversations. Nothing's materialized, but certainly we hope that the Quad Cities is represented. Ultimately, what we're trying to get them to do is recognize this as a metro area. The bi-state region has become problematic for that. Those of you who are not familiar with the federal government, obviously their offices in each state then refer out to either Omaha, Nebraska, or Springfield, Illinois. Some offices refer to Chicago and Kansas City. And so the statistics then for our area get lost in those major metropolitan areas. So we're trying to create a story that represents the issues that we're having here locally.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. Mr. Williams?
To speak to the chiefs, in the early 90s with Project Safe Neighborhood, Crime Stoppers received over $50,000, and we had a lot of gang murders in Rock Island, people from Chicago moving down, and by offering $1,000 rewards to people in the community, there was an awful lot of gun violence taken off the streets and people sent away for a long period of time, and it actually made an impact, and it kind of highlighted and amplified the need for more federal footprint here in the Quad Cities, so I applaud those efforts. Sometimes here during argument it gets a bit contentious, and everybody is very passionate about how they feel about different things, but I'm convinced it's not personal. It's just trying to do good representation, and at the end of the day, it works as long as we don't make it personal and continue to serve the people that elected us. And after this group rotates out and the new group comes in, and you guys become the old salts, and you bring the new ones along, you'll watch them go through their growing pains and give them some wisdom, hopefully. Thank you.
Mr. Macias?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, at the end of this month, February 25th, the Empowerment Network will be hosting the Black Business Expo, again at South Park Mall. So I encourage everybody here to go support Black businesses, and in particular at South Park Mall, because anytime they can get more businesses in there, more traffic in there, that's a plus for everybody. So it's February 25th, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And be sure to also like their Facebook page to be on the know, which in particular, they did share the Boost program that we had too as well. So I'm glad that they're actively following what Moline's doing for our business community.
Great, thank you. Mr. Went?
Thank you. I want to reiterate what Alderman Williams said about being passionate about what you believe and those sorts of things. Anybody who actually came to council meetings before this group was here, we would have very heated discussions, and sometimes Shoemaker was coming out of his chair or different things, but that doesn't mean that it's personal. It's a passionate debate and discussion, and that's the important thing. It is not a personal thing. I've been told sometimes I have too thick a skin where I'm just like, oh, well, okay, well, we're fine, we'll move on to the next thing. But that's, the idea is to represent as passionately as you can what the residents you represent and what is in the best interest of the community. With that being said, one thing I do want to bring up, it was actually mentioned in the paper earlier this week, is a concern I have if mayors from other communities are reaching out to our administration regarding items that we're going to be voting on. I think that it is absolutely appropriate for those to be shared with the council prior to those votes happening. Even if the idea is like, hey, they reached out to me and they are completely way off base and this is the reason why, fair enough. But to not provide that information to this elected body is just not appropriate. I mean, I think on Friday, the chamber is having a board of mayors roundtable of some sort, and in all their advertising, they talk about the communities working together and having great dialogues and all those different things. And so it is important, it is imperative that that information be then provided to us. You know, and to that effect, with our major partners in our community, I was a little concerned about Group O. I know that we have been in conversations with them about their site out by the airport and those sorts of things, that they had no idea that this was happening. Understandable that it may not be part of the initial negotiations and all those things, but when it's coming up and going to be on the agenda and those sorts of things, those partners that are neighboring developments and those sorts of things, it would be appropriate to reach out and solicit their information and their thoughts. And so those were a couple of things regarding the Lakeshore process that I think we could and should do better in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Timian?
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to reiterate how wonderful I felt the Boost program was last night. Saw my next door neighbor there, saw a lot of people that I knew from the community. It was very well attended. And I think it's just it. I think KJ told me that we've invested $2.7 million into small businesses over the last 2 years, or that, I paraphrase. Maybe the voice in the sky can tell me. But
KJ, so I
it's KJ. Okay. Is that KJ? Yeah, it is. Is that correct, KJ?
Hello, everyone. Yes, we've invested 2.7 since 2020.
That's awesome.
Including the Boost program.
So I just think that it speaks to our values as a city. And so I thank CED for that, and I thank WIU and all the partnerships we've had. As to the concern of neighboring communities and sharing that information, I think I would be embarrassed to be a mayor who did not know how to email a council if this was the voting body, if this was something that was to be considered. So the mayor is not my secretary to receive mail for me. If our neighboring community wants the voting body to be informed about something, our email addresses are on the website. And so I encourage all of our neighbors to actually reach out to the voting body if it is worthwhile of their time. So otherwise, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Moyer?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Waldron? Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, Your Honor. in the same line of Alderman Timian's comments. While I can understand the desire to have information coming from certain places or certain partners, if someone's writing as a representative of the city of East Moline, this is our official position, those are the kind of things we come. When they come knocking at our door saying, hey, we don't like this because, right now, your citizens' money is coming to our pocket and we'd like you to shut it down, it's none of our jobs to turn around and say, who's lobbying us? That's not any elected official's responsibility. And that's really what this was nothing more than them lobbying on their own behalf. And I couldn't agree more that if I needed that information, it should have been delivered to me. I was lobbied, I was talked to by individuals and organizations who had an interest in that proposal. And Group O has stood up, has come to all of us, brought that to all of our attention at the same time, and I think that does deserve consideration in our, conversation going forward. But information that is brought to me, it's not our job to amplify someone else's lobbying message if we don't choose to bring that forward.
Thank you, Mr. Vitas.
Very briefly, Mayor, a meeting regarding LRS has been scheduled with the mayors and the administrators here in the Quad Cities on February the 16th at 2:30 to 3:30 at the Moline Public Library in the Gold Room to discuss the project. Walter Willis will be there, David Silverman will be there, I will be there, KJ LaRope will be there, Katie Neary will be there, and of course the mayors and the administrators have been confirming their attendance at the meeting. And it was nothing short of 30 emails to put an end to the debate going on amongst elected officials in terms of where to go with this, and we had to rope it in. This is our project, this is our city, and we're the ones that control the tempo, the dialogue, and have to go through the legal process on whether or not this will be cited or not cited. We're talking August. And if we're, for those of us who are here, we'll be here, great. Those of you who don't have to be here, you're luckier. But the reality is, that's where we're at. I mean, and it is an ongoing dialogue. I can tell you, I just pulled up on my phone that there was a message that came in from Maria Ontiveros at 2 minutes or 3 minutes to 6 tonight. And I just pulled it up, saying that somebody would be here. So at least they reached out. But I can tell you that knowing Ben Leichner, he's a class act, and I know conversations did take place. And he even said it in meetings with other officials there. They were well aware that this project has been on the books and on discussion for over 2 years now. So let the record be clear going forward, because there's going to be misinformation going forward for months now. So our job is to keep everything on an even keel, and it's not going to be an easy task.
Mr. White?
Yeah, just a question about, because we passed that agreement with them contingent upon us coming to an agreement regarding the minimum tax. And I know, it didn't happen tonight, obviously. Do we have kind of a time frame? Because I know one of the concerns was, because I think I said 45 days because I just wanted to have a backstop to it. But one of the concerns is the longer this goes out, then the citing process or whatever can't begin until that's accomplished. So do we have a time frame on when we think we might have?
Yeah, I heard that late this afternoon, actually after lunch, a late lunch, that they've been working on it. They've got some numbers. They're going to share those numbers, and we're going to fact check those numbers with the assessors. Well, in this case, the Blackhawk Township Assessor's Office, but also internally with the with our own finance department and of course our CED department. But we are going to be looking at it because we don't want to see numbers that are too low, and we don't want to, of course, have numbers that are out of whack. We know the project is a $15 million project, and give or take whatever the market will bear when they actually do construction. And that's based on average construction costs in the Chicago area for other similar facilities. So we will be bringing them back shortly. I would like to bring it back by the 21st, to be honest, if we get it done.
Thank you.
Okay, I got one other thing. One other thing, I've mentioned it before, because I'm not sure what your guys' process is for agendas. like I said, at one point, we used to get draft agendas on Thursday that helped when, because we've had some issues with things being missed or not on it and have to be republished multiple times. Is that, with this Granicus system, an option for a draft to get, because it would then also allow maybe questions to be asked earlier so that we would get answers maybe possibly before, 4:45 the night we're trying to scramble, grab a sandwich and get down here by 5:30.
I can't answer the question about Granicus, whether or not, I mean, it creates documents, I mean, over and over and over again. I mean, so we go through multiple drafts during the course of a week. I mean, there's no one draft that becomes final. There are multiple drafts because things are either not ready or there's missing attachments, and we want to make sure that everything is there. So, that's a process that we're trying to refine. If the council is interested in having an agenda go out earlier, then I need to move the cutoff dates and the deadlines up. Because from the time that, they submit, everything has to be in by a Monday morning, on the S drive. That's getting uploaded so that it can start to be reviewed on Tuesday. So, and in between everything else going on, we're trying to read this agenda, read these resolutions, ordinances, attachments, to get it all there, to get it out the door no later than Friday. Thursday would be preferable, but that's been a challenge.
Knowing that this is a
It's a
process
challenge.
improvement issue for the professional staff,
It's a good point.
I'd like them to analyze that first before we just
Yeah.
jump to doing it a different way. Because it hasn't been always that there have been mistakes, but is human error that needs to be corrected. There is the process improvement. So that's where it sounds like we can leave it at the
We're trying.
moment.
We're working it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
All right. Any further public comment? Yes, sure. Chief Gall.
I'm also a resident.
Yes.
How are you speaking tonight, sir, as a resident?
Last Wednesday night, the city administrator and his wife held a fundraiser for Brandon Bowden, and I just want to thank Bob and Jan for an outstanding event that raised thousands of dollars for Brandon Bowden and his family as they're going through a difficult time as he's battling brain cancer. So I wanted to let you know that he was recently cleared to return at a light duty status. He will begin work tomorrow for 6 hours a day. And so good news for him, for all of us. And again, I just want to thank not only Bob and Jan for putting on that event, all the hard work, but if you were there, and I know probably almost all of you were there with so many people there, I probably couldn't see everybody there. But there were a lot of people, and I think I mentioned it's one of the news outlets. If you want to know if you live in a great community, and every great community has some sort of crisis, the response to crisis or stress in a community was evident last Wednesday night at Poor Brothers. And certainly, speaking on behalf of Brandon Bowden, we thank everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I believe we do have executive session.
Your Honor, I make a motion the council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C2, and appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Williams, seconded by Timian. Roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.